I died. Not the kind of death that happens in the mind. Not the emotional death when your heart turns cold from too much pain. I truly died. The doctors confirmed it. The heart monitor let out a long, stretched tone that hung in the air like an irreversible declaration. For nearly 2 hours, my heart did not beat, my lungs did not breathe, and every sign of life returned to zero. But the strange thing was I was still there. My soul did not disappear. I could still see, still hear, still understand. Then I was taken to a place no human language could ever describe. And yet somehow, everything in that place already knew my name. Even the light. I used to wonder if there was something after death. Was there truly a realm of light that could love us without condition? Would there come a day when I would stand before the full weight of my life, like watching a slow-motion film with no way to explain or excuse what I had done? If today were my last day, would I have the courage to face it all? I once believed I was strong. I once thought I had control over my destiny. I once imagined I understood what it meant to live. But I was wrong. No one truly understands what life is until they have walked through the door of death. I'm not telling you this story to shock you. I'm not trying to convince you to believe in anything. This is simply my story. The story of someone who wandered lost for most of his life, and only after death began to understand just how wrong he had been about everything that mattered. You don't have to believe me. But if you have ever lost someone you love, if you have ever feared death, if you have ever felt alone in this world, then maybe you'll understand why I can no longer stay silent. What I saw touched the deepest part of me, a place I had never dared to enter in my entire life. And if you truly want to know what happens after that long, final beep, you must first understand how Gabriel Mason lived before he died. Because the way we live is what determines why we're allowed to return. Have you ever wondered why some people die and still come back? I am one of them. And the answer begins here. I was the kind of man people looked at and assumed I was living the right way. 47 years old, successful, with a beautiful wife, a well-behaved child, a spotless home on a quiet suburban street outside Seattle, and a sleek black car parked neatly beneath the porch as if to declare that I had life under control. In the eyes of my co-workers, I was someone who had it all together. To society, I was the image of a grown, responsible man. No scandals, no recklessness, no loose ends. But there was something most people didn't know. Something even I barely acknowledged. Or maybe something I'd spent years trying to forget. Inside me, there was an emptiness. A quiet, expanding dark space. Like a sigh that never quite made it into words. Every morning, I got up on time. I made my coffee, read the paper, and drove to the courthouse where I worked as a juvenile probation officer. I lived by logic, by discipline. I forced myself to be strong, to be fair, to be decisive. But the more fairness I extended to others, the colder I became toward myself. I was afraid of emotion, afraid of weakness, afraid of sitting down and telling my daughter I was sorry for all the times I had been absent where it mattered most, in her heart. I used to love my wife. At least, I remember that I did. But time wore us down. The job, the sleepless nights, the rushed meals, the quiet sighs trapped between the words, "I'm fine," and "we're okay." Little by little, it all chipped away at love. We still lived in the same house, sat at the same table, slept in the same bed. But sometimes the distance between us felt wider than any ocean. And I was too proud to swim back toward the woman who once held my hand at the altar. The woman who once believed in me more than I believed in myself. I remember my mother, even though she passed away many years ago. We used to be close, until one argument changed everything. It was about religion. I had firmly rejected God, denied heaven, and dismissed the faith she had cherished her entire life. I said things that hurt her, and she cried. That was the last time I ever saw her. A month later, she died of a stroke. I never got the chance to say I was sorry. Never got to hug her one last time. Never got to whisper "Mom" through my sobs. For years after, every time I saw a candle flicker in a church, I wanted to bow my head, but my throat would tighten like stone. I thought time would heal it, but it didn't. Time only made the pain settle deeper, not disappear. It sat in my chest like a rock. When I laughed, it didn't move. When I was silent, it grew heavier. Then one morning, as I was getting ready to leave for work, I felt a sharp pain in my lower abdomen. It was like someone had clenched a fist full of needles and twisted it inside me. I collapsed into a chair, my face drained of color, sweat pouring as if I had just run a marathon. I assumed it was just an old kidney stone acting up. A little water, a pain pill, and some rest, and it would pass. But it didn't. The pain surged, relentless and violent, blurring my vision and shaking my hands so badly I couldn't even hold my phone. When my wife came rushing down the stairs, she barely had time to scream before calling for an ambulance. On the way to the hospital, I leaned my head against the window. I wasn't afraid, or at least, I didn't allow myself to be. But I knew this time was different. My body wasn't just reacting to pain. It was surrendering. I tried to close my eyes and picture something familiar. Sitting at my desk, talking to my daughter, doing anything ordinary. But everything had faded like smoke, like a movie fast-forwarded to the end. And at the end, there was nothing. The doctors diagnosed me with a urinary tract infection, a complication from kidney stones. The bacteria had entered my bloodstream, triggering full-blown septic shock. Without emergency surgery, they said I would be dead within hours. I was rushed into the operating room. Everything happened so fast. Nurses moved quickly. The lights in the ER were cold and blinding. My wife stood just beyond the glass, trembling, her tears falling without sound. And then, when the surgery ended, the worst happened. My vital signs crashed. The heart monitor let out one long, steady tone. A flat line across the screen. The lead doctor shouted for an emergency response. Nurses performed chest compressions, connected a ventilator, and delivered electric shocks. But none of it worked. I was gone. At least, that's what everyone saw on the outside. But inside me, something else had just begun. There was no bright white light, no angelic music, no guiding presence, just a stillness, a formless space that hovered like morning fog, refusing to lift. Yet in that quiet, I realized I was no longer in pain. No more tightness in my chest. No more weight. Nobody. I didn't understand what was happening. All I knew was that I was looking down, and I saw myself. Yes. From above, I saw the doctors trying desperately to save a man. That man was me. Or at least, the body I had left behind. I didn't panic. I didn't struggle. I just watched. Part of me understood. Another part found it strangely natural. As if death were a turn I'd always known existed but never dared to take. I saw my wife break down as someone pulled her away from the room. I saw my daughter collapse into the arms of a nurse she'd never met, unsure whether to pray or to let go. And then silence. No sound. No pull. Just a sensation so gentle. It felt like someone had softly spoken my name with a kind of love I had never experienced in all my life. I had died. But it wasn't the end. In truth, it was only the beginning. Because what awaited me on the other side would shatter everything I thought I knew about life and death. Is there a place where every mistake is illuminated like light, and every wound is met with a love that asks for nothing in return? I saw that place. I don't remember the moment my heart stopped beating. There was no loud explosion, no sudden flash of light, no warning. There was no feeling of panic, no scream. Everything just shut off. A quiet shutdown without a sound. I didn't fall into darkness. I didn't drift toward the light. I fell into stillness. A stillness with no name, no shape, no weight. It wasn't like any kind of sleep I'd ever known, and it wasn't like death the way I had imagined it. It was empty. So empty that I couldn't even remember who I was. I was no longer a name, no longer an identity, a role, or a title. I was nothing. And strangely, in that very nothingness, I began to exist differently. I had no form, but I knew I was moving. I had no eyes, yet I could see. I had no ears, yet I could hear. I had no arms or legs, but I could feel. Lighter than wind. Still as mist. It was as if I had dissolved into a state beyond time. I had no idea how long I had been there. A second. A minute. A lifetime. Or all of it at once. And then I saw myself. Yes. I saw my body lying there, motionless, covered in wires, machines humming with cold, steady sounds. The doctors leaned in, the nurses worked quickly, and my wife had collapsed by the glass outside, her shoulders trembling with every sob. My daughter clutched her phone so tightly that it looked like she believed that if she dialed just loud enough, someone might pick up and tell her father was still alive. I saw everything. I understood everything. But I felt no pain, no fear, no heaviness, only a strange sense of peace. A kind of peace I had never known in my entire life. You think death is terrifying, don't you? I used to think that too. But the truth is, death is not as violent as we imagine. Sometimes it doesn't come with a terrifying scream. Sometimes it comes in complete and absolute silence. Like a door quietly opening in the dark. No creak. No glow. Just open. And I stepped through it. Without fear. Without resistance. Without knowing why. I just stepped. I asked myself, where am I going? Am I still me? Do I have a choice? Or has everything already been decided? The questions rose inside me like waves crashing against the shore. But there was no one to answer. No one left to ask. And I realized that the silence itself was the answer. And then the light appeared. It wasn't a blinding light like the ones I'd heard about in near-death stories. It wasn't a divine flash of pure white. It was a light that seemed to breathe. It didn't rush toward me. It emerged slowly, gently, from somewhere very deep, very far, and yet somehow very close. As if it had always been there waiting for me to be still enough to see it. This light didn't push me forward. It opened its arms to receive me. It had no form, but it carried feeling. A kind of feeling that felt ancient. Unnamed. I didn't know whether to call it love, or acceptance, or grace. It was all of those things and more. I didn't walk toward it. I didn't fly. I drifted. As if I and this light had once been the same thing, and now we were simply reuniting. No words were spoken, but I still heard something calling to me. Not through sound, but through sensation. Something or someone recognized me. Not because I was Gabriel. Not because of anything I had done. But simply because I existed. I drifted through a space with no boundaries. No ceiling. No walls. No ground. Just layers of mist moving with the rhythm of breath. Each wave of light whispered something I didn't need to understand. I only needed to feel. And what I felt was that I was loved. Not because I deserved it. Not because I was good. But simply because I was. Have you ever imagined a place where no one judges you, no one brings up your past, no one asks where you came from or what you've done, only that you are who you are? That place exists. I know. Because I was there. I felt as though I was moving towards something vast. Bright. Real. But not overwhelming. Not threatening. It didn't pull me in. It invited me. As if the choice was mine to continue or to stop. And I chose to continue. Not out of curiosity. Not out of longing. But because I couldn't not go. As if I had been born to arrive in this place. Along the way, I began to see fragments. Not fragments of matter, but fragments of memory. I saw my childhood lying in a sunlit corner of an old backyard. I saw my mother's eyes on the day she sent me off to school for the first time. I saw my father's hand gripping my shoulder when he couldn't bring himself to say the words, "I'm sorry." I saw myself turning away, more than once, when someone simply needed a hug. These memories didn't come to accuse me. They just appeared quietly. And somehow, that quietness made my chest tighten in a way nothing else could. I asked myself, am I about to see my whole life? Is the place I'm going not just heaven, but also truth? And if that's true, do I have the courage to face it? Can I bear the weight of realizing I may not have been as good as I believed? I didn't know, but I felt I was about to find out, because the light kept calling, and every step closer to it felt like something inside me was being cleansed. Not by fire, but by truth. A truth that didn't need to scream. A truth that only needed to be present. I no longer remembered who I was in the old world, but I was beginning to remember who I was in my soul. I was a child once afraid of being left behind. A man who feared admitting when he was wrong. A father who quietly walked past his child's sadness without asking a single question. A husband who once thought silence meant safety. A son who missed the chance to give one last embrace. I used to believe that death would be the end of everything. But it's not. In death, everything begins to appear. There is no room left for lies. Nowhere left to hide. No more excuses to delay. Only me. And everything I ever was. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to stand face to face with yourself? Not the version you see in the mirror, but your soul seeing you for exactly who you are. What would you say? Would you apologize? Would you blame? Or would you forgive? I still don't know what I'm going to do, but I can feel the moment approaching. And if what I saw is real, if after death it's not heaven or hell you face first, but truth itself, then are you ready to look at yourself fully, honestly, without defense? Because the place I was approaching was not just light. It was a mirror that knows how to love, but also knows how to demand truth. And I was about to stand before that mirror. Part 4. Heaven and the Sacred Encounter, a memory awakened by light. I thought I would dissolve into the light. But I didn't. I wasn't fading away. I was being drawn deeper. Deeper into a realm where every concept I had once known felt too small to hold what I was experiencing. This place had no borders, yet I felt surrounded, embraced. There was no wind, but every movement felt like flight. And the strangest part was that I began to feel a memory. Yes, not see, not hear, but feel the memories of my life not through images, not through words, but through the soul itself. I drifted through a strange garden, not a garden of flowers like the ones on earth. The trees here glowed. Their leaves seemed to breathe. And each step I took didn't land on the ground, but on memory. A quiet river ran through the garden, and when I looked into it, I saw myself. Different versions of me, across different chapters of life. I saw myself as a child, crying at night because I missed my mother. I saw myself at 20, shouting at her and slamming the door, leaving behind a look in her eyes that was never healed. I saw myself at 37, turning away when my wife needed a simple embrace, and choosing silence instead. I saw my daughter sitting alone outside her school, waiting for me to come to her first performance, the one I forgot about. Each of these moments came not to accuse me, but to let me feel what I had made others feel. Not through punishment, but through presence. And in that presence, nothing could be hidden. Not because I was being judged, but because I was finally ready to remember. I didn't just see. I felt. I experienced. I endured everything I had once caused, only this time, from the eyes of the ones who had been hurt. I heard my mother sigh in a dark room. I heard my wife crying quietly behind a locked bathroom door. I heard my daughter whisper, "Maybe Daddy's just busy." And I couldn't turn away. I couldn't defend myself. I couldn't say, I didn't mean to. Because in this place, there were no justifications. Only truth. And the truth is always louder than any excuse we've ever spoken. I collapsed. Or more accurately, my soul fell to its knees before the truth of who I had been. But just when I thought I would break apart, another light appeared. Gentle. So gentle. But deeply familiar. I turned my head, and I saw my mother. She didn't look as old as the last time I saw her. She looked radiant, at peace, like the most beautiful version of her I had ever held in memory. I didn't dare come close. I felt ashamed. Unworthy. But she wasn't angry. She wasn't disappointed. She simply looked at me with the same eyes that once soothed me to sleep when I was a child. And then she stepped forward and reached out not to judge, but to hold me. And in that embrace, I knew I had been forgiven. You know, the most painful thing in life isn't being resented by someone. It's believing you don't deserve to be forgiven. I had carried that belief for years. But now, with just one look from my mother, I understood. True love asks for nothing in return. I broke down. My soul cracked wide open like a lost child who had finally found home. I said I was sorry, not with words, but with every trembling piece of light that I had become. My mother simply nodded. "Knowing your fault is enough," she said. "But you're not done yet, Gabriel. Someone is waiting for you." And just then, everything around me began to fade, not because I was being taken away, but because another presence was approaching. Powerful, radiant, but not blinding. A wave of light enveloped everything. And I knew. Even without seeing his face, I knew who it was. Jesus. How did I know it was him? Not with my eyes, but with my heart. A heart that, for the first time, felt completely seen, completely understood, completely loved even after a life lived imperfectly. I couldn't lift my face. But he bent down. He asked, "Are you ready?" I didn't understand. Ready for what? I had already died. I had reviewed my life. I had been forgiven. What else could there be? He smiled. Not with words. With presence. Yet every thought he carried echoed inside me like a whisper carried by the wind. "Gabriel, you are not finished. Your life is not over. You still have a choice. You can stay," he said, "in this place where there is no more pain, no more fear, no more loss. Or you can return." I wanted to ask, return for what? I had hurt too many people. I had missed too many chances. I had wasted too much time. But he didn't need me to ask. He already knew. You used to think you were in control of everything. But now you know, the only thing you can truly govern is your soul. And that soul, it can still be healed. I wanted to ask, if I went back, could I make things right? He didn't answer with explanations. He showed me. I saw the future if I stayed. My wife would go on living, but a quiet crack would remain in her heart. My daughter would grow up never fully understanding why her father had been absent, even in his death. The people I had crossed paths with would never hear the story I had to tell. And then I saw the future if I returned. It wouldn't be easy. It wouldn't be miraculous. But it would be real. A life where I could say I'm sorry. Where I could mend what was broken. Where I could share what I had seen. A life where I could live right, not just live long. "You are not being forced," Jesus said. "You are being invited. The decision is yours." I stood at the intersection between unconditional light and the shadow of responsibility. And strangely, I chose to return. Because for the first time in my life, I didn't choose what was easier. I chose what was right. But the choice wasn't as simple as the light's invitation made it seem. It wasn't a choice between good and bad. It was a choice between what was easy and what was right. I looked into the future if I stayed. A place of peace, no more responsibility, no more mistakes, no more eyes waiting for me to make things right. I could remain here forever, dissolve into the light, and never have to explain anything again. But I also saw the future if I returned. Heavy, silent evenings between me and my wife, the cautious look in my daughter's eyes when I knock on her door, the doubt from those I had once walked away from. Going back meant walking through every wound I had created with my own hands. I used to think forgiveness was something someone else gave you. But here, I realized true forgiveness begins with yourself. I had to forgive the version of me that lived carelessly. The man who forgot that the most important thing in life is not success, but connection. The missed embraces. The phone calls were never made. The family dinners were where I sat at the table, but my mind was somewhere else. Jesus didn't speak much. He didn't need to. He was simply present. And in that presence, I felt completely seen, with all my shadows, with all my ruins. But I wasn't rejected. I wasn't condemned. I asked him not out loud, but from the deepest part of me, why me? Why do I get to come back when so many others don't? And he whispered into my spirit only one sentence. Because you were willing to look. I cried. My soul cried. Not out of sorrow, but from a deep, indescribable release. I had worn my anger like armor for years. I had believed emotion was weakness. But here, tears were the language of awakening. And I wept like a child, the child within me I had long abandoned. Jesus showed me one more thing, a moment I thought I had forgotten. I was about 7 years old. I had hit a neighborhood boy because he accidentally dropped my toy airplane. I didn't apologize. I ran home, heart pounding, hiding under my blanket, terrified my mother would find out. But she didn't yell. She didn't scold me. She simply placed a warm glass of milk on the table and said, "Knowing you did wrong is enough." When that memory surfaced, I realized something. I had repeated that pattern my whole life, causing pain, then hiding, hurting others, then staying silent. But what broke me wasn't the guilt. It was the love that remained even after the mistake. I asked Jesus for one thing. If I return, please let me live awake. Please don't let me forget this place. He didn't answer with words. But I felt a silent yes like a seal being placed gently on my soul. A mark no one could see, but one that would guide me whenever I was tempted to run again. And then he extended his hand. Not to pull me, but to let me place mine in his. When I did, there was no thunder, no blinding light. Just a warmth that flowed through me like a quiet stream. And I knew I had chosen. I fell. But this time, I knew I was falling toward life. I knew there would be pain. There would be doubt. There would be people who wouldn't believe the story I had to tell. But I also knew I had seen something not everyone gets to see. And if I was going to keep living, I had to live differently. Do you believe a person can truly change? Not because they're forced to, but because they've been given a chance. A chance to start again from the very place they fell. I used to be someone who didn't believe in that. But now I'm living proof. When my eyes opened, for the first time in what felt like hours or maybe lifetimes, I saw my wife's face. Her eyes were blurred with tears. I tried to move, tried to speak, and my voice, though weak, came through clearly. I'm still here. There was no applause, no choir of angels, just the sound of a heartbeat. Slow, exhausted, but real. And with every beat, I knew I had returned from death. Not to live longer, but to live truer. I opened my eyes. There was no heavenly music, no radiant light, just the steady rhythm of a ventilator, the weary glow of fluorescent lights, and the faint smell of antiseptic in the air. My chest felt heavy, like a stone pressing down on it. My arms were stiff, as if they hadn't moved in years. My mind spun like I had just returned from a strange dream, one that felt both foreign and intimately familiar. A dream more real than life itself. I didn't know how long I had been lying there. I didn't know how many resuscitations I had survived. But one thing was certain, I was back. Not just back in this body, but back in awareness. A new awareness. Clear and unfiltered. I knew I couldn't live the way I had before. Because if I did, this return would mean nothing. My wife walked in. Her face was drawn, her eyes red and swollen. But behind all of that was something she couldn't hide. The fragile glow of hope just beginning to flicker again. I looked at her. Looked. Not as a husband looks at a wife, but as a soul looks at the one who waited in the darkness. I didn't speak. I couldn't. I just gently squeezed her hand. And in the tears shimmering in her eyes, I knew the most important thing I could do now was to begin again. But how do you begin again a life you once broke with silence? How do you return when the past still lives in the eyes of the people you've hurt? How do you say, "I'm sorry," when those words no longer feel like enough? Those questions stayed with me through every night in the hospital. They echoed in my mind as I stared at the ceiling, replaying the soundless voice of the light I had once touched. But I knew I had to try. I started with the smallest thing. I asked my daughter to come into the room. No big moment. No dramatic speech. I just said, "I'm sorry." Not just for the times I wasn't there, but for the times I was there and wasn't present. She didn't say anything. She didn't hug me, but her eyes turned red. She looked away, and in that moment, I knew her heart had opened just a little. And sometimes, just a little crack is all the light needs to get in. I resigned from my job. People were stunned. They couldn't understand why someone who had just survived a miracle would choose to walk away. But I knew I couldn't continue that work and keep the soul I had been given back. I no longer wanted to manage files. I wanted to touch people. I didn't want to evaluate anymore. I wanted to listen. So I began to share my story. First, in small church gatherings. Then, at cancer support centers. Eventually, in classrooms for troubled youth. At first, they looked at me with skepticism. A middle-aged man, pale and soft-spoken, was talking about dying and coming back. Some thought I made it up. Others assumed I was trying to sell something. But when I got to the part about seeing my mother again, about seeing myself hurting the people I loved most, the room always fell silent. Because real pain doesn't need to be performed. And I had truly known pain. I didn't preach. I simply told the truth. I didn't try to persuade. I just shared. And somehow, that made them listen. People would come up to me afterward. Some were in tears saying, "I missed the chance to say my last, I'm sorry too." Others would take my hand, trembling, whispering, "I'm not afraid of dying anymore." One man told me, "I never believed in God, but after hearing you, I think maybe I need to start searching again." And with every person like that, I understood there was a reason I came back. But healing isn't a one-way journey. I had to face myself, too, every single day. Some nights, I still see that river of memory. I still hear my daughter's voice echo from years ago saying, "Maybe Dad's just busy." I still see the tears in my mother's eyes. And I've had to learn not to hate myself for that. Forgiving others is one thing. Forgiving yourself, that's a longer road. But every day, I take one more step. Not a sprint, just a step. And for someone who once died, I've come to believe that just taking a step is already a gift. I returned to church, not to become the perfect believer, but to sit quietly in the presence I once encountered. I didn't pray with words. I prayed in silence, by sitting still for a long time, by clearing out the noise within me so there would be space for truth to enter. I no longer needed to prove that heaven was real. I had been there. I didn't need anyone to believe me. I just needed to live in a way that honored the second chance I had been given. My wife slowly started to smile again. My daughter began to ask me questions without hesitation. I wrote a letter to my mother not to send it, but to read it aloud. For myself, the letter began with the words, "I'm sorry for believing you would always be there waiting for me to apologize." I folded it and placed it inside the old Bible she used to read, as a way of sending it back to the place I had once been. You ask me if I've changed. I haven't become a saint. I still get angry. I still have moments of weakness. I still make mistakes. But now I am awake. I know when I'm drifting, and I know when to stop. I've learned that love is not just a feeling. It's a decision, a daily choice, a conscious action, and more than anything, I've learned that truly living means knowing what you're living for. People who've heard my story still ask me, "So, you're not afraid of death anymore?" I smile. No, I'm not afraid of death. I'm afraid of living without knowing why I'm alive. I used to live that way, and I never want to go back. Have you ever felt like you're alive, but everything is just running on autopilot? Like you're moving but have no idea where you're headed? If you have, then maybe you understand me. And if you haven't, I hope you never have to die to wake up the way I did. But what happens when the story ends? When the one who died and came back must finally face the biggest question of all. What do I have left if tomorrow never comes? I started keeping a journal. Not to preserve anything, but to let things go. Every morning, I wake up earlier than everyone else in the house, make a cup of coffee, barely stronger than water, and sit by the window to write. I don't write anything profound. Just the stray thoughts in my head. Sometimes it's a question like, can I be kinder today than I was yesterday? Sometimes it's just one line. Don't forget you died. I write like someone learning to breathe again after nearly drowning. And with each word, each soft scratch of pen on paper, I'm reminded that life is both incredibly fragile and deeply sacred. Not everyone welcomes me easily. Some relatives still keep their distance. Some people whisper behind my back that I'm just putting on a show, making things up to get attention. Some look at me like I'm insane for saying I met Jesus. At first it hurt. I wanted to defend myself, to prove them wrong. But then I remembered that light, that presence, that feeling of being completely understood without saying a single word. And I realized I don't need anyone to believe me. I just need to live as if it's true. Because truth doesn't need to be proven. It just needs to be lived. Once, I was invited to speak at a rehab center. That's where I met a young man named Lucas, 29 years old, hooked on drugs since he was 16, abandoned by his parents. He looked at me like I was just another washed-up preacher with nothing new to say. But after the talk, when the room had emptied, he came up to me. He didn't say a word. He just held out a rusted necklace with a cross on it. I asked, "Do you believe in God?" Lucas shook his head. "No, but my mom did. She used to wear this. She died. I keep it to remind myself that maybe she's still out there somewhere." I held his hand. "She's not just somewhere out there. She's in the very pain you're trying to climb out of." He didn't say anything, but his eyes filled with tears. And I knew a crack had opened. Just enough for the light to get in. I realized I didn't come back just for myself. I came back for people like Lucas. People who don't need a preacher. They need someone who's touched hell and returned to tell them there's still a way home. I had to relearn how to love. Not through grand romantic gestures, but through washing the dishes when my wife was too tired. Through sat quietly while my daughter talked about school without interrupting or judging. Through stood up and offered my seat when I saw someone who needed it more. Through sending a simple thank you text to an old friend I hadn't spoken to in years. I began to fall in love with life again, in the smallest of ways. The smell of toast in the morning. The sound of birds singing between rows of concrete buildings. The shock of cold water when washing my hands. Things I never noticed before now felt sacred, like tiny miracles unfolding before me. And then one day, I nearly lost everything all over again. We were driving out to the countryside for a quiet weekend. Just me, just my wife, our daughter. On the highway, a truck lost control and swerved straight into our lane. It all happened in less than 3 seconds. I yanked the steering wheel to the right. The car skidded off the road, shaking violently. We came to a stop. No one was hurt, but I sat there frozen. Not because I was afraid of dying, but because something old rushed back in. What if this had been it? What if this time I didn't get to return? That night, I couldn't sleep. I stepped out onto the porch and looked up at the sky. And for the first time in months, I prayed. Not to ask for anything, just to say thank you. Thank you for another day. Another chance to make things right. Another moment to live with intention. Do you know what truly changed me? It wasn't dying. It wasn't the light. It was the gift of getting to live again, every single day. It was the choice I now make in every moment. To see my mistakes and not run from them. And when you dare to live as if today could be your last, you begin to see that nothing is small. No one is invisible. No mistake is beyond forgiveness if you're humble enough to face it. I'm no longer the man I used to be. But I'm still me. I still get irritated. I still get tired. I still feel disappointed. But I don't let those emotions rule me anymore. I let them pass like clouds in the sky. I've learned how to pause, how to look again, and how to choose again. Every day I ask myself one question. If today were my last day, how would I live it? And that question has become my compass. Not to live fast, but to live deep. Not to chase after grand things, but to cherish the simple ones. You see, I don't have any great lesson to teach. I only have a story, a journey, a soul that once lost its way and found the light again. And if you're reading these words, if you're hearing my voice, then maybe, just maybe, you're on your journey too. The question isn't how many mistakes you've made. The real question is, are you willing to begin again? Because light doesn't choose the perfect. Light chooses the ones brave enough to open the door. I used to think death was the end, but now I know it ends with nothing. It simply opens a door no one wants to step through, yet all of us eventually must. And the real issue isn't whether that door exists. The real question is, are you ready? I'm not telling you my story to shock you. I'm not asking you to believe me. I'm asking you to believe in yourself. To believe that every breath you still have is a chance to begin again. To believe that no mistake is too big to be forgiven, as long as you're willing to face it. To believe that you don't have to die to discover what it means to truly live. I once lived like a machine. Wake up, go to work, make money, stay quiet, sleep. I thought that was life. But it wasn't. It was survival. A routine that the world praises, but slowly corrodes the soul from within. Have you ever looked at someone across the dinner table and realized you don't see them? Ever said, "I love you," while your mind was still stuck on an unread email? Ever sat beside your spouse and felt as cold as a snow-covered field? I have. I know that feeling better than anyone. And I know now, being invisible destroys more relationships than betrayal ever could. Because betrayal, at least, still carries emotion. But invisibility is the slow death of a soul whose body is still breathing. When I died, I saw everything. I saw the words I never said, the hugs I never gave, the times my child waited outside school, wondering if I'd show up, the nights my wife sat alone in silence with an empty chair beside her, the moments my mother cried behind closed doors when I shouted down her faith. I saw it all, and I couldn't change any of it, but somehow I was allowed to come back. And the question I carry with me every day since is this: if you were given the chance to return after seeing the full weight of who you were, would you live differently? I think you would. I think you'd wake up a little earlier just to watch the sunrise. I think you'd hold your loved ones a little longer before leaving the house. I think you'd stop letting anger settle in your heart for too long. I think you'd apologize not because you're wrong, but because you love. I think you'd choose kindness, not because someone earned it, but because you once wished someone had chosen kindness when you were lost. I'm sharing this story because I want you to know you don't have to die to be reborn. Rebirth begins the moment you dare to be honest with yourself. When you dare to face the truth. When you stop blaming, stop pretending, and simply begin to take a step forward, even if it's slow, even if you're shaking, even if you're still covered in wounds. You can start over. Right now. You don't need to wait for a miracle. You don't need anyone's permission. You are the miracle. You. All it takes is your willingness to believe it. You ask me how I live now. I live more simply, more gently, with less noise but deeper meaning. I give more of my time to the little things because I've come to learn it's the little things that hold a soul together. I write more. I listen more. And more than anything, I've learned to listen to myself, especially when my heart says something my mind hasn't yet caught up with. I'm not afraid of death. I've walked through it. What I fear is living without knowing why. I've lived that way once. And I don't want that for you. If you're hearing me now, I want to say this: forgiveness is real. Rebirth is real. The light is real. But you have to open your heart to see it. Don't wait until it's too late to say, "I'm sorry." Don't wait until someone is gone to write the words you never said. Don't assume you'll always get another chance. Life never promises that. But life always offers you a chance if you're ready to take it. And if you've ever made mistakes, if you've ever hurt someone you love, if you've ever lost your way, if you've ever lost yourself, believe me, there is still a way back. I'm someone like that. I failed. I lost. I died. But I was forgiven. I came back. And if I could do it, you can too. In the end, I'll leave you with just this: don't wait until death to learn how to live. Because life doesn't begin with a heartbeat. Life begins the moment you realize you have to live differently. And now I ask you, are you ready? I've shared my story. Fully. Without hiding. Without dressing it up. Just the truth of a man who once lost his way, who suffered, who died, and who was given a second chance. But I know that somewhere on the other side of this screen, someone else is holding a story in their heart that's never been told. A wound that's never been touched. A memory that's never had a voice. Maybe that someone is you. Have you ever lost someone before you had the chance to say, "I'm sorry"? Have you ever lived a life that didn't feel like your own? Have you ever woken up and wondered, how did I end up here? Or maybe you've simply felt lost in this world, in your family, in your skin. If any of that sounds familiar, I want to invite you to share. Whether it's a single sentence or your entire journey, let it out. Let your story become a light for someone else out there who's still stumbling through the dark. Because I truly believe we weren't born to walk this road alone. And sometimes, a single honest word can rescue a soul that's just about to fall. Write it down, right here in the comments. Send it out not as a performance, but as a release. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be poetic. It just has to be real. I'm listening. So are many others. And who knows, maybe from your story, someone else will finally find their way back home. You've carried it long enough, haven't you? Let it breathe. Let it be seen.